If I had a nickel every time there was a fourth movie in a popular animated franchise, released in 2024, where the main character mentors an annoying new character who is an antagonist in the beginning but warms up to him, contains an uninteresting villain and story, and encounters every single villain in the franchise in a final scene that seems out of a fever dream, where they are reduced to lifeless cameos. I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice, right? Guys, I didn't think that I'd be making the exact same review that I did when Kung Fu Panda 4 released earlier this year, but here we are. I guess Hollywood is running out of ideas. Today I'm going to talk about Despicable Me 4 because this is a franchise that I've been attached to since I was a child. I really love the first movie and I have a lot of thoughts about it. It's been going through a lot of changes since the beginning. There's been 6 movies released so far, plus a lot of shorts, a lot of like animated like spin-offs, and this is a franchise that just basically exploded over the last decade. It's insane the popularity that things like the Minions or Gru, well, especially the Minions, because, you know, everybody wants to watch this because of the Minion humor that began with these movies, I guess, like this kind of like random, wacky humor, which is fine, but I feel like that's kind of like the heart of the franchise. That just became like an afterthought of when the first movie was released. They were like, oh yeah, we gotta squeeze every single cent we can out of this concept. But they're also pretty good movies. I really enjoy every time I go to the theater. I really enjoyed watching this one. And I feel like if that's what you like, that's what you're going to get. And that's something that I want to consider. But also I feel like there's a lot of things in this franchise and these kind of movies that I want to talk about. And especially in Despicable Me 4. The first half of the movie was absolutely awful. I've had more fun watching paint dry in slow motion than watching the first half of Despicable Me 4. The first 40 minutes or so, from a conceptual standpoint, look and feel like they would have been an episode from one of those low-budget spin-off series that beloved animated movies tend to get nowadays. Oh god. Just another way to milk the audience for their hard-earned money with a concept that is shown time and time again that it works. However, the movie does really pick up well in the second half. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of different plot points with the Mega Minions and Gru's relationship with this new character, the villain who's trying to get revenge, and there's like a couple, like 2-3 other plot lines that kind of intersect and they just kind of get forgotten and get picked up again. So I feel like there's a lot to keep it fresh in the second half, and it was pretty fun. There were a lot of jokes to keep me going. But yeah, the first half is just kind of like, I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, but luckily it got really saved in the second one. But my main point in Despicable Me 4 is that it just doesn't really feel that groundbreaking. I feel like with each movie that is released in this franchise, these characters and worlds seem to lose the depth that makes adults enjoy them too. The first Despicable Me is still one of my favorite animated movies of all time. It is extremely funny, it sets up the characters and world in a way that feel untethered to any expectations. That was before the Minion craze came along, and everybody just knew who these characters were. The second one is also pretty damn good, introducing Lucy and the AVL, which set up a lot of different elements, including Gru's like identity crisis, where he just doesn't want to become a supervillain anymore, he wants to do something else, and that leads to a lot of elements that felt really organic and really natural, and that's why I like the second movie also has a really soft spot in my heart. However, from the third one, I feel like they just lost a lot of depth. It has some interesting things in the third one with his brother and his relationship with, you know, his family and like the backstory of Gru, what that was interesting. But it just felt like a vacation episode in like a series or something, like an animated show where they're just like a bunch of jokes, like zero depth. And that's something that annoyed me and just continued into the fourth one. There wasn't really anything that moved the plot that like provided character development. And in the fourth one, it's kind of the same thing. Like there's not really anything that made me go like, oh, these characters are learning something. There's something that's changing Gru's character. No, it just feels like a bridge series for a fifth and sixth movie that are pretty much going to be the same, I guess. There's not really going to be any payoff in the series. And that's something I'm going to talk about next soon. Let's not even talk about the side characters, such as Gru's daughters and also Lucy, which are basically reduced to background characters. Like they just stick along for the ride and like no development. They're just there to deliver their lines and continue their stories, but there's not really much anything there that is interesting. I feel like the movie's saying these characters already had their moments in the first few movies, and that's pretty much it. They're just side characters now. And finally, the Minions movies, well, let's just not talk about those. I guess the second one, Minions Rise of Gru, has some interesting character developments with Gru as a child as he's trying to learn how to become a supervillain, but that's pretty much it. The rest is just an endless barrage of Minion jokes, and it has some funny moments. I'm going to say these movies are enjoyable, but they're not going to be very deep as the first and second one. I guess you can say that in the fourth one, the most important plot element is that Lucy and Gru have a child, who is Gru Jr., but like I said before, I feel like it's more a plot element than an actual character, like they're trying to save him from the main villain, who was really uninteresting too. Or at least he seemed uninteresting to me because I watched the Spanish version of the movie, and it was after the fact that I realized that this character was voiced by Will Ferrell, which would have been a much more enjoyable experience, but it just seemed that way to me. He didn't seem very like well written. but at the end of the day, it's just like it provided a lot of fun characters and a like fun final battle. So my point with all of this rant is that basically I feel like I don't care that they make Despicable Me 40 like an endless series of movies, as long as they make good stories and something that it can be enjoyed by everyone, and it's just not like very shallow Minion jokes the entire way. Speaking of the Minions, I feel like they try to do something interesting with them each movie. However, it doesn't seem like this way with the Mega Minions. I feel like it's just like taking advantage of the the superhero craze that's been going on in the last couple of years. Although there was a really good parody that I saw on YouTube, like a trailer showing like the endless movies that they're gonna come out with.
But Despicable Me 4 is just the beginning. Presenting Illumination's Megaverse, 50 interconnected Mega Minion stories shared across a variety of mediums on an irregular basis for the next 100 years.
Which is a very clear parody of Marvel, which I thought was pretty funny, even more funnier than the movie, and that's something that I guess could be interpreted as a parody of superhero fatigue. But I just wanted to comment on that because I thought it was hilarious. Now we gotta talk about the final scene, because I feel like that's the reason a lot of people clicked on this video, because this is something that's really annoyed me, and the more I think about it, the more I hate what is being done here. And also it's funny because it is the exact same scene that happens at the end of Kung Fu Panda 4. So let me set up the stage for you. At the end of the movie, Maxime, and who is the main villain, and group finally kind of like make peace, and they're like, okay, let's start it out with like singing a song in the prison. Like for some reason in the same prison, all the villains are put together. So they sing Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, which is an excellent song, by the way. And as they're singing, it just erupts into like a chorus within the entire prison. And then you started seeing like some of the villains from the other franchise. I remember I was at the theater and I was like, oh, hey, that is El Macho, no? Like they're in the corner. And then I noticed Vector on the side and I was like,
oh no, oh no, no, no.
Suddenly you see every single villain in the franchise, including the ones from the Minions movies. And they're all singing together. And then Gru and Maxime walk towards the middle of the prison within shanking distance of every single one of these villains who've tried to kill Gru in the past. And I was like, what is going on? Is this real? Is this like a dream sequence? Why Vector was on the moon, then he went to Mars in that one short that was released last year? Why is this happening? Then I thought to myself, okay, this is a kid's movie. Don't get too worked up about the lore of Despicable Me. But the more I thought about it, I was like, no, this is not happening. This can't, like, how are you're breaking the lore? You're actually breaking, like, the characters that you're actually changing so much with this one sequence. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't know why they did it. I feel like it's just kind of like the same logic in Kung Fu Panda 4. They were like, oh, we need a good marketing strategy to get people into the theater. So let's just bring back every single villain, even though it doesn't make any sense, even though some of these guys are dead. For example, a lot of people in the Kung Fu Panda video pointed out that General Kai actually disappeared and exploded in the end of the Kung Fu Panda 3 movie. So why is he back there? How on earth did Vector get back to Earth after being stranded on Mars? Why are a lot of these characters dancing with Drew? If they're all in the same prison, wouldn't they all want to get revenge on him? So I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna pretend it's not canon because I don't want to think about it. I just hope they do something good with Despicable Me 5. So anyways, I'm gonna give this movie a 72 out of 100. Same as Kung Fu Panda 4 and Despicable Me 3. I feel like these movies get a little bit worse each time, but you know, it was still a fun time. I'm just not gonna think too much about it. For me, the best one is always gonna be the first movie. But as a final point, after watching the Vector short last year, I felt like this franchise was building up to something interesting, like Vector getting revenge on Gru on a 4th or 5th movie, maybe a 6th, like kind of building to something like really cool for people who like to follow these stories, because this is a really interesting universe if you think about it. Like a lot of these supervillains, like the concepts are really fun, really wacky, and I feel like when you look at it from a character development point of view, I feel like it would have been a lot of great stories in this franchise. But now with this final scene, I don't know what to think. I feel like if villains are just gonna dance with the main character who put him there in the first place in prison, I guess that's what we get. Anyways, that's all my thoughts for this movie. See you guys later. Have a great day.